Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mindset, Heartset, Reset. We are so excited to welcome you today for our special edition book launch for Neale Donald Walsch's new book called GodTalk. I am here with the fabulous author of GodTalk and, of course, my amazing co host, Jacqueline Way. We are super excited to bring to you a show. Well, of course, all our shows are amazing, but to bring to you a show that is really, but it's true, I don't lie, to bring to you a show that is really, I think, important for our daily existence, insofar as if we want to be the highest, truest version of ourselves, if we want to live our best lives, if we want to be fulfilled, if we want to achieve all that we want to achieve, live our purpose, all of these things, then today's conversation is really going to take us there. So, a little bit about
pressure.
mindset hearts.
No pressure
Sorry?
now.
No pressure. A
No
little bit
pressure.
about Mindset Heartset Reset. We are a live weekly show. We are on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. GMT. And this show is really a show that encourages introspection, cultivates compassion, and really moves us into that space where we can, in fact, make positive change. It is all about where we start with our mindsets and connecting to that, absolutely moving into our heart space, and both of those giving us the courage to hit the reset button on our lives. Our mission is to spread love on a global scale and to create a world in which all can thrive. So thank you so much for joining us. Jacqueline, I'm going to come over to you to introduce yourself and our beautiful, wonderful, amazing guest, Neale Donald Walsch. I'm Dr. Roshna Kashmir. Thank you for joining us.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is truly an honor for me. My spiritual journey literally started with this man, and it's the reason, and I've told him to his face as well, it's the reason I do what I do in this world. I am the founder of a charitable organization called 365 Give, and it was started as a personal parenting project with my son and I when he was just 3 years old, and we made a commitment to do one small act of giving every day for 365 days. And what I'm looking forward to talking to Neale about today is the fact that for me, this became my spiritual journey to understand love and to understand that beautiful conversation that we can have with God that directs us in our life. And I literally blame 365 Give on Neale. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with him today. And for those of you, and I can't imagine that there's anyone out there in our audience on YouTube, on Facebook, here on Humanity's Team live stream that doesn't possibly know this man, but we'll do a little introduction just because it will be fun for me. So for everyone, this is the infamous, hilarious, fun, witty Neale Donald Walsch. Neale has written, actually, I want to celebrate this moment right now. This book, God Talks, is his 40th book on contemporary spirituality, which is an unbelievable feat for anyone in one lifetime. And it's really a practical application, and as Dr. Roshnak was saying, in everyday life. And that's what Neale gives us. And today, in his new book, that's just come out literally, I think it's been on the shelves now for 1 week, God Talk. It's the experience where we can understand that everyone can connect to a higher power. It's an understanding that Neale shared with us years ago, but today we're going to take it that one step further. So that we can really begin to understand that, God isn't off limits to everybody, and that God is there to communicate with us as a moment by moment experience to help guide us, to help us thrive, as Dr. Roshanak said, in our own lives, and how we can use this as a beautiful tool to create the life that we all want. And as Neale's words always tell us, to live from the highest, truest version of who we are. So Neale, welcome to the show. This feels like another full circle moment with you. We have the pleasure of communicating with you and having conversations with you on Clubhouse weekly on Wednesdays. But now we have you here in our live show. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us. We're excited to celebrate this moment in time with you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this moment with you. I appreciate it very much. You mentioned in your comments that that the book that we're talking about, titled GodTalk, shares with people that everyone can have that kind of personal connection with the divine. And when you said that, I almost wanted to stop you, but I wouldn't think of interrupting you in the middle of your comment. But um, my awareness is not that everyone can have a personal connection with the divine. My awareness and what the book says is that everyone is having
Mhm.
a connection
Mm,
with the divine. Not that everyone
mm,
can have that connection, but that everyone is having it right now. The challenge for most of us is that we don't know that we're having it, or if we do know that we're having it, we don't know how to, use it, facilitate it, experience it fully, and frankly, to use common language, we don't know how to take advantage of it. So the question is not the statement is not everyone can have that connection. The powerful statement of the morning here is everyone is having that connection, and our opportunity is to come to a place of knowing it and then using it.
I love that. Well, can we, before we move, and thank you for correcting me on that one, because that is such a huge piece to create that understanding that we really want for everyone that's joining us today. Can we just take one step back, for those people that potentially haven't read your very first original book, A Conversation with God? Let's just take one step back in time, because this is where your conversation really started. And I'd like to introduce that conversation to the audience so that they'll begin to, we can take them through where we are today with God Talk and how we can create it as this tool in our own lives and continue that line of communication moment by moment. So can you just go back, Neale, and share with everyone A Conversation with God, your very first book? Tell us about that moment of time in your life, the story, where you were, and how that unfolded for you. How did you begin hearing these messages for yourself?
Well, I had reached, really, I hate to be so trite, but I'm going to use the trite phrase. I really had come to the end of my rope. Nothing in my life was working. My relationship with my significant other had fallen apart, sadly. We did not have a bitter parting. It was not full of anger or hatred, but we did come to an agreeable departure from each other's presence. But I was very sad about that. And then 5 days later, I lost my job, actually. And not because of bad performance. As a matter of fact, my boss said to me that you're the last person that we really want to lose, but we've gotten orders from corporate headquarters to downsize. We need to lose some overhead, and you have no seniority. You were the last person hired, so you're the first person that we have to release because of your lack of seniority. So I lost my relationship and lost my job all within the same 5 day period. And then, Jacqueline, 5 days later, I'm on the road heading toward an interview for another job opportunity. And I was certain I'm going to be hired because I had all the qualifications, all the background, all the experience, and terrific recommendations from the place that just released me. So I thought, okay, this is just a pro forma thing. They're going to interview me and they're going to hire me on the spot. I never got to the interview because an elderly gentleman driving his car turned left in front of me. I was oodling down the highway. It was a city road. It wasn't a highway. It was a city street. And I was, just 25 miles an hour, just driving very slowly down this road. But he misjudged the distance between his car and mine. He wanted to turn into his driveway, so he made a left turn, not into the driveway, but into my car, into the driver's side of my car, because I got there faster than he thought I would. So this was not a fender bender. My car was totaled, and I was nearly totaled. I was pretty racked up, and I wound up with a broken neck. And it wasn't just a hairline fracture. I can still remember the exact wording on the x ray report. It said that I had suffered a 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the 7 cervical vertebrae posteriorly. In other words, a fracture in my neck big enough to put a pencil through. This was not a hairline fracture. So, it was a major, major injury. And when I awoke in the emergency, of course, they rushed me to the hospital naturally. And when I awoke In the emergency ward, they put me under immediately, of course, because of the pain was excruciating. But they put me under. And when I finally woke up from this, the doctor leans over the table. He said, Mr. Walsh, you've been given an incredible gift. You understand that 98% of the people who walk in here with a fracture that's severe in their vertebrae in your neck die because of spinal cord complications. And if they don't die, at the very least, they're paralyzed from the neck down. You have escaped both outcomes. And he leaned over the table. I'm lying on a table. He leans over the table and he says, so what do you intend to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Because he wanted me to understand that I had been given an incredible, incredible gift. So, I thought about that, but it wasn't quite as easy as just deciding what I wanted to do. I'm wearing a Philadelphia collar now. That's a therapeutic device that holds your head up when your neck cannot support your head. And the doctor said to me, Neale, I want you to understand we're talking about, imagine a basketball being held on the head of a pin. That's what's going on unless you wear this collar. Do not take this collar off for any reason. You will sleep with it on, shower with it on, make love with it on, do whatever you're doing. Do not take this off until I tell you. Well, it was all very well and good. Fair enough. So I'm wearing a plastic collar around my neck. Who cares? Well, who cared? It turned out, Jacqueline, was everybody who was interviewing me. I was now going to job interviews, and people were just not hiring me, even though I had all the qualifications and all the background. Finally, about the sixth or seventh person that I was being interviewed by said to me, Mr. Walsh, I've got to be honest with you. Nobody's going to hire you as long as you're wearing that therapeutic device around your neck. We all realize that one wrong move and we're paying your hospital bills for the next 16 years. We can't do that. Come back to us when you're totally healed of whatever's going on here, and we'll hire you in a minute because you have all the qualifications that we need. So I realized that, oh, great, no one's going to hire me while I'm walking around wearing this thing. And I wasn't allowed to take it off for at least 18 to 20 months. So there I was, running out of money fast. I had taken a little apartment. I had agreed with my spouse that I would leave, and get a little place and live by myself. But after about 4 or 5 months, my savings ran out. And the landlord had to ask me to leave. I was evicted, to put it directly. And I wound up living on the sidewalk. I had no place to go. I couldn't go back to my wife's place. We promised we wouldn't do that. And I didn't want to burden her with, what was going on with me. So I wound up living on the sidewalk. But I thought, you know what? I thought, okay, I can do this for a couple of bad weeks or maybe a month or so. I'll work this out. That month that I thought I'd be out there turned into a year, 2 weeks shy of 1 year. 1 year living on the street. I was a street person.
Wow.
The great American nightmare. I'm sleeping on the concrete. I'm going from person to person with my hand out. Could you maybe spare anything, even a couple of quarters, whatever? And I remember one man looking at me and said, well, all I have is some change right now in my pocket. I said, you know what, if you could spare me a quarter or two, if everybody that I asked today gave me a quarter, I might be able to eat tonight. So I lived that way for a year, and you don't realize how much you lose your sense of dignity when you're living on the sidewalk that way until it strikes you that, I'm sorry if I'm being too graphic here, but there's not even a place for you to relieve yourself. You have to sneak into the back door, sneak into the side door at McDonald's or some fast food place and see if you can get to the men's room before the manager finds out you're there, because you look terrible, you smell terrible, your hair is down to the middle of your back, your clothes haven't been washed in weeks. And of course, the manager says, please, just leave, don't make me call the police. I said, can I please just use the bathroom? To have to beg for some place to use the toilet, you've lost all human dignity. Begging for money on the street, begging for a place to relieve yourself, and trying to find a place to sleep at night that's halfway decent. It was a kind of a rough period in my life. But finally, to make a long story longer, I got off the street. I wound up with a little job. I've got a little part-time weekend job, and I could get back into a little studio apartment above somebody's garage somewhere. And I got at least out of the weather, and I had my own bathroom. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. and I could even afford to put a couple of pieces of bread and some peanut butter in the larder, so I was able to survive. And then that's when I woke up, Jacqueline, at 4:20 in the morning, one morning after a year of this, and I woke up and I'm screaming, really in my head, not out loud, but in my mind, to God, screaming out to God, "What do you want from me? What do you need? What the hell's going on here? Come on, I've got some talent, I've got some intelligence, I've got some understanding of life. What does it take to make life work? What have I done to deserve a life of such endless, ongoing, continuing struggle? Tell me the rules." And I'm furious. I'm saying to God, "Tell me the rules. I will play this game. Just give me the rule book. And after you tell me the rules, don't change them." Because my experience had been that I was faced with changing rules every 3 or 4 weeks. And something different was demanded or requested or required of me by life and by my understanding of God. So I went out, to the couch. And I'm sitting on this used couch which they had furnished the place with. And there was a yellow legal pad on the coffee table that I was using to keep lists of groceries that I wanted and so forth. I began writing an angry letter to God just to get the feelings out. Dear God, and I'm asking the same question. What does it take to make life work? And I'm scribbling. And then, Jacqueline, I heard a voice. And the voice said, Neale, relax. It'll be okay. Just answer me. Do you really want answers to all of these questions, or are you just venting? I'm thinking, you think? Yeah, I'm venting. But if you've got answers, I'd sure as hell like to know what they are. And the voice said, you are sure as hell about a lot of things. But wouldn't you rather be sure as heaven? And I'm thinking, what's that supposed to mean? What, I got a wise guy here?
Well,
Not as a wise guy.
I love you got the voice of a wise guy, Neale. That's rather appropriate.
And then I received answers to every question I had asked, and to questions I never even dreamt existed, because I was having questions placed, if you please, in my mind, questions that this voice wanted me to ask, so it had a chance to answer them. Ultimately, I'm writing furiously for hours, not just for a couple of minutes. This is going on now from 4:30 in the morning. Now it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank goodness it was a Saturday, and I was able to do it. And I'm writing this angry letter, but I'm getting all these answers, back and forth, question answer, until I was so fascinated by the process that I allowed it to continue, not only for the rest of that day, but for many, many mornings thereafter. Every morning, awakening at like 4:20 or so in the morning, and getting back to the legal pad until I had huge. I had to actually find a way to get $1.29 to buy more legal pads, until I had, like, literally, without exaggerating, 7 or 8 yellow legal pads stacked high with this ongoing dialogue. And then at one point, I promise you this story is going to be ending here in about 10 more hours. But before this dialogue ended, I was told, you will make of this one day a book. It was be accessed by many people. And I thought,
a book? Just one?
Yeah, and I thought, that's not going to happen. Nobody's even going to publish a book like this. What publisher is going to say, wow, I got a guy here who's talking to God. Stop, hold the presses, stop everything. It's not going to happen. So I honestly, Jacqueline, I dared God. I thought, okay, show me. We'll see about that. And I sent my notes of my ongoing dialogue to a small publisher on the East Coast of the United States. Much to my shock, I got a call a week and a half later. Of course, I put my phone number in what I had sent them. And I get a call a week and a half later. The man says, we want to put this book out. This is fascinating. We want to make a book out of this. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, we find these questions and answers intriguing at least, and really, really helpful at best. We want to put the book out. So I said, they said, we need to change the title. I said, we're not changing the title. I sent it to you as Conversations with God, and you're going to publish it as Conversations with God, or you're not going to publish it at all. And the publisher said, well, excuse us, first-time author telling us, but I guess. but it's not going to sell a lot with a title like that. It's going to be a pushback. People are not going to read a book by somebody who's claiming to have conversations with God. Nobody's going to buy this, but we'll put it out if that's what you insist. And he was right. He said it's not going to sell 500 copies, and it didn't. He was perfectly right. It did not sell 500 copies. It sold 5 million in 37 languages, and wound up on the New York Times bestseller list for 139 weeks. That's 2.5 years on the New York Times bestseller list. So I'm not bragging. I'm just saying. And when God tells you something, you probably should listen carefully. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I have learned that lesson, what you said, when God tells you something, you should really listen to it. Oftentimes the hard way. And since then, I do listen. So it's not so hard because it does always work out best from my perspective. But I have a question for you, Neale. Great story. Love it. What about the people who have a hard time with the word God? So your publisher didn't want you to publish with that name because a lot of people have a hard time with the word. It can cause separation, distance from themselves, from others, etc. It can be a triggering word for whatever reason. And so could you speak a little bit to how we can help people, or how we can, for those people who are triggered by the word God, don't understand the word God, don't like the word God, don't believe in the word God, or whatever, how should they approach the concept of God?
Well, in a totally different way. First of all, I have to tell you that I have refused to compromise on my use of the word God. I'm not going to try to find some other word to replace the word God. So, and I've said to my audiences, if the word God offends you or is a pushback, or you just have a hard time with the word God, then I guess you do. Get over it, or at the very least, allow it to be a curiosity item. You fall into your curiosity. Is it possible? I mean, just possible that there's something we don't fully understand here about this thing called God, the understanding of which would change everything. So I would dare people in my talks, in my speeches, in my articles that I wrote for magazines, and in my interviews that I did with the media. I would dare people. You know what? I'm not backing off the word God. We're talking about God because that's exactly who we're interacting with. But if you want to know more about that, and if you have a pushback to the word, maybe you're having a pushback in a way that doesn't serve you. So do you have at least an open enough mind to explore the possibility that there's more to be understood here about this? And most people responded positively to that question. So I invited them to explore with me a whole brand new definition of God. And that's why I wrote a book, by the way, called The God Solution, which is not a dialogue book, but it's a book that answers directly the question you just asked. It's a book that addresses itself to people who have a hard time with the whole concept of a God. I've said to those people and to anyone else who picks up the book, hey, you know what? There's a solution to all of this. Not only to your pushback to the word God, but the solution to most or many of the world's problems. Let's change our definition of God. Let's consider the possibility that we have defined God in a way that is inaccurate and said things about God that are simply not true. So let's create a new definition of God. If we could create a new definition of God, finally, a definition upon which every religion on the earth could agree, because right now we have over 4,000 religions on the planet, and they don't agree on a commonly held, jointly embraced definition of God. Every religion has its own dogma, its own doctrine on that topic. So I offered in the God Solution a 2-word definition of God. Let's redefine God and say that God is pure love.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? When I say this in front of an audience, somebody inevitably gets up in the back of the room and says, oh, Neale. Have I been listening to you for 20 minutes for you to tell me the great revelation? You said God is love. Everybody knows that God is love. Even religions that differ on dogma and doctrine would all agree that God is love. Nobody disagrees on that. Come on, Neale. And I have to say, wow, relax. That's not what I said. I said God is pure love. Now my friend in the back of the room will say, okay, what's the difference? The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return. Now, guys, that's theologically revolutionary. Every religion, virtually, I haven't looked at every single one of the 4,000, but I'm sure the largest number of the world's religions espouse, talk about, teach of a God who does have certain things that God needs, demands, and requires. We even have a whole list of them. One of them is called the Ten Commandments. And if you break those commandments, you're going to hell. So to teach of, or even suggest that God needs nothing and demands nothing of us, that God loves us purely, is in fact theologically revolutionary. It changes everything. But here's the most important thing that it changes, guys. Sorry, I give a little speech. You guys ask me 27-second questions, and I give you 27-minute answers. But I have no choice because these are not.
We have 27 hours. We're good. We can go live for 27 hours. Yeah. We've done that on Clubhouse. We can do that. Yeah.
The production team here is very generous.
Because these are not small questions. But the reason that it makes a difference, what we really think about God, is that most of the world's religions teach us, or at least invite us and encourage us to be examples of God's love, to be living expressors and sharers of God's love. And people do. I mean, they try. Good people try to do that, but they do it in the way they understand God. They understand that God loves us, but also, as a measure of that love, as a demonstration of that love, judges, condemns, and punishes us. We call this God's love. We call it God's justice. Therefore, even if we choose as human beings, individually or in groups called religions, etc., even if we choose as human beings to demonstrate to the best of our ability God's love, we allow ourselves to be judgmental, condemning, and punishing. Because after all, what's good enough for God is good enough for us. Now, if we change our definition of God, if we dare to suggest that God requires, demands, expects, and nothing from us in return for God's love, that pulls the rug out from under our rationale for judging, condemning, and punishing each other on this planet. You know, pure love is a way we can't even love the person on the pillow next to us in that way. I would challenge everybody who is listening to me right now, if you're partnered with someone, or if you even spend occasional moments of intimacy with someone, and you're deeply in love with that person, dare you, double dare you, to enter into a relationship with that person where you need, expect, require, and demand nothing in return. That's pure love. When you love a person for what you think they're going to give you back, then you're not loving them at all. You're simply loving yourself, using them as an instrument through which you can draw to yourself what it is that you hope to receive in return for the love that you're giving. It's transactional. Love becomes transactional. I will love you if. But the opportunity that life places before us is to no longer consider love as transactional, but to consider love as the greatest gift that you have to give to anyone or anything in the world. And by the way, we are capable of doing it. We all do it with 2-year-olds. We all do it with pets and animals. We do it with horses, for goodness sake. We do it with inanimate objects. People love their houses or they love their cars. And they really do. They say, I just love this car. You really get into a love relationship with your car because it gets you where you want to go and you feel lovingly toward a totally inanimate object. Couldn't we just love each other in the same way? Let that be our question for the day.
I love that because I find that so much of the problems that we're facing are because of judgment, blame, and shame. And the fact that, unlike basically anything else in nature, we've separated ourselves out from our nature and have artificially created this hierarchy that we allow others to validate us. We allow others to dictate to us how we should, quote unquote, love, what we should do, and are we worthy? And so, given that concept of worthiness and blame and shame and hierarchy, and you've touched upon it quite a bit already, could you tell us what is the importance of reconciling ourselves with the truth of our nature and of our God, the God of what we understand to be?
Well,
Our understanding.
It's important in my awareness because it allows us to complete the agenda. That is, to serve our, to use the French phrase, our raison d'être, our reason for being. It's been my observation, not just of other people, but of myself, my observation of my own life, that for the largest portion of my life, until I was 53 years old, I had no idea what I was doing here. I mean, I didn't have any idea who I am and why I was here. I really bought into the cultural story that the reason that I was here, or if not the reason, certainly the agenda, was really laid out for me quite clearly when I was 13 years old. Get the car, get the girl, get the job, ultimately get the better job, get the better car, get the better girl, get the house, get the spouse, get the kids, get the office in the corner with your name on the door, get the building on the corner with your name on the building, if you're really successful, then get the grandkids and get the better job, and get even the better car, the better house, and get the better spouse, and the better spouse, and the better spouse, and the better spouse, until you finally get a spouse that's worthy of you. I'm not making a joke here. This is how many people live their lives on the planet, and it is how I lived my life on this planet until I was 53 years old. When I woke up one morning realizing, wait a minute, there's something missing here. This is not adding up. There's something clearly that I do not understand, the understanding of which would change everything. And that's when I had my conversation with God, because I had, everything else in place, but I couldn't find happiness. I couldn't find a place of peace within myself. So yeah, it's important because there's an agenda that we are serving. Let me just extrapolate on that just a tiny bit. If we think that this is who we are, I'm a body, I'm a physical body, and I am my body and I am my mind. I'm another life form, not all that much different from a bird in the sky or a fish in the sea. I'm a form of physical life. That's who I am. If that's who I think I am, then I will move through my life paying attention to the priorities and the needs, if you please, of this and of this, of my mind and of my body. But I was told in my conversations with God, Neale, it's not who you are. These are simply things you have, but this is not who you are. You're just not another physical specimen, like a dolphin in the ocean or a bird in the sky. You're a spiritual entity. You are a soul having a body and having a mind. And you're using these items, if you please, as tools, as pieces of equipment to complete the agenda of your soul, to fulfill the reason that your soul came to what we would loosely call the realm of the physical. Of course, I had to ask God, what are we talking about? What is that? What is the agenda then? If it's not about get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the better car, get the better job, then what is the agenda here? Somebody tell me. That's why I was calling out to God, as I said earlier, what are the rules? Just tell me the rule. What's going on? And God said, you've come to the realm of the physical in order to experience who you really are. Because in the realm of the physical, you are confronted with a contextual field. That is, you are confronted with people, places, and events that are not who you are, that are the opposite of who you are. And that is the context that creates the possibility for you to experience who you are. Because in the absence of what you are not, what you are is not experienceable. And I said, okay, God, you lost me. Help me out. A lot of words, help me out. God said, Neale, relax. It's really very simple. Let me give you a simplistic example. Let's just use a metaphor. Pretend that you decided that you are the light. I'm not saying don't get all freaked out about this. It's just a metaphor. But so to help you understand, if you decide I am the light, what do you need in order to experience that? I said, well, I don't know. What are you getting at? God said you would need the darkness, because in the absence of the darkness, the light is not. You can't experience yourself as the light in the absence of the darkness. Therefore, Neale, raise not your fist to heaven, and curse the darkness not, but be a light unto the darkness, that you might know who you really are, and that all those whose lives you touch might know who they really are as well. And when I heard all of that, I realized, oh, it seems we've been told all of this before by not just one spiritual master, but virtually every spiritual master, female and male, throughout the years who has visited us on this planet, have said some version of the exact same thing. Wow. What would it take for us to get it? Oh, I get it. Programs like Heartset, Mindset, Reset. I see. Programs like this.
And books like GodTalk. Neale, this is beautiful. In GodTalk, you share 6 steps that you use to talk with God. And one of them in particular, step 3, is about willingness. Could you maybe share the steps that you yourself use and why number 3 is so important?
Well, the 6 steps that I use in order to experience my conversations with God: possibility, worthiness, willingness, wakefulness, acceptance, and discernment. Now, willingness, step number 3, is important because most of the world's religions and philosophies, in fact, frankly, most of the world's people, that is the largest number of the world's people, are not willing to hear that we think God is talking directly to us. In fact, most of the world's religions call that blasphemy. It's an ecclesiastical offense. It's apostasy. It's heresy. So in order to avoid being ridiculed or marginalized, or worse yet, sent to the 7th floor of the hospital in the psychiatric ward to be visited by doctors to get us out of our illusion. So in order to avoid all of that, we don't call our experience conversations with God. We call them something else. But the 3rd step in having your own conversations with God is to be willing to overcome the cultural bias against such an idea. Our culture says, no, God does not talk. Okay, maybe God talked to Moses. Fair enough. Maybe God talked to Buddha. Maybe God spoke to Jesus or through Jesus. Maybe even today, God probably talks to the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury or the Chief Ulama or the head rabbi, but not to the first baseman for the New York Yankees, much less some weird guy in Oregon who claims to have heard directly from God. So we have to be willing to overcome our culture's bias against the idea that God talks directly to us. Then we have to go to step 4, which is wakefulness. If we are willing, okay, I'm willing to have God speak directly to me. And we've already passed step number 2, which is worthiness, which says that all of us are worthy to be spoken to, and I mean directly, spoken to directly by God. Then we go to step 4, which is wakefulness, to be aware that God is in fact communicating with all of us all the time in 100 different ways across 1,000 lifetimes. Many, many different ways that God communicates with us. The billboard on the next corner on the freeway when you're turning down the road, and you realize that there's 8 words on the billboard that directly speak to what you've been thinking about for the past 2 weeks. Or the chance utterance of a friend that you just happened by coincidence, to run into on the sidewalk, even though you haven't seen him in many, many months. Or the conversation overheard in the coffee shop. The lyrics to the next song you hear on the radio. Let me give you an idea of how God communicates with all of us, and how, if you are wakeful, step number 4, you begin paying attention. I'm in a department store. This happened years ago, but I remember it vividly. I'm in the department store looking for, a sport coat that I wanted to get. And suddenly, in the men's clothing section, I'm smelling gardenia. I'm looking around, gardenia. I'm not in the perfume section. I'm nowhere near the fragrances. Why am I smelling gardenia in the department store? And then I stopped questioning it. I thought, you know what? I got to pay attention to this, because as it happened, gardenia was my mother's signature fragrance. She wore gardenia perfume all of her life. It was her favorite fragrance. So whenever I smelled gardenia, I thought, of course, immediately of my mother. When I left the department store, which I did, I just dropped my whole mission there and got in the car and went home. This is way before cell phones. I wasn't carrying what we now call cell phones. But I did go home and I jumped on the phone. Because I realized I got to call Mom. I don't know why she's coming into my mind so powerfully, but I've got to call her, and I did. And I had one of the most important conversations I ever had with my mother, who then, as it happens, left the planet just a few weeks later. You tell me why I would walk into a fragrance of my mother's signature perfume in the middle of the men's clothing section of a department store. Now, people say a coincidence, or you're just imagining that there's some connection. Or you know what? Step 4 is wakefulness. Stay awake. And step 5 is acceptance. Acceptance means don't deny the obviousness, which is not really a word, but I pretend it is a word. Don't deny the obviosity of the messages that you're receiving. Just pay attention to it. Because if you deny it, you could be denying a very, very important piece of information. And finally, step number 6, discernment. Don't imagine that, okay, now that we've heard Neale talk about this, does that mean that everything that happens is a sign? Is, conversation with God? I reached into my pocket to get my car keys out, and as I'm pulling out my car keys, a $10 bill happens to fall onto the ground. It's a sign. It's a sign. So then I have to reach into my pocket and take all of my money out and throw it on the ground because God told me to. Maybe not. You may want to send all your money to Jacqueline Way to support her charity, but you don't want to throw it on the ground. So, guys, discernment is the 6th step. I talk about this in much more detail in the book. The 6 steps to having your own GodTalk, to be aware of that experience that all of us are having, that God is communicating with us all the time in 100 different ways across 1,000 moments of our life, and to pay attention and then use discernment. For all we know, those of you who might have a pushback to the word God, or might not really have, I want to say, stepped into your full experience of it, for all we know, this very program that you're listening to right now could be part of that process by which the higher power is signaling to you, hello, I'm here. This is what's going on. And that's what I would offer, even though it seems that I've frozen. Everything is frozen up here. My picture is
You are a little frozen. We can still see you though, so that's okay. We'll go with your voice, and your face is not completely contorted, so
It is
we're
a
good
great
here.
look, though.
It's a good look. We've got you frozen in time. And Dr. Roshanak, I have a couple of, can I just slide in there for 1 second with a couple of questions that I have that we'll hopefully get a short answer from. We'll see. Neale, I have two quick things for you. And one is, when it's been sitting here listening, and I know there's times in my own life where I feel like I've blocked the ability to hear. You've taught me over the years, and I read Conversation with God when it came out, all of those just a few short years ago. And it helped me to understand that I could listen and I could hear and get those messages. But some days I feel like I'm not connected. And I know the yogis call it your Shakti, the energy that flows through, and that you have that ability. What are some of the ways that we cut this off in our whole life? Oh, did we just lose him? We did just lose Neale altogether. I'm not going to continue my conversation yet. That's okay. Well, wait a minute. I know he'll get some technical support and he'll come back. And Dr. Roshanak and I have the amazing benefit that we spend so much time with Neale. We've both read the book, and we're not going to miss a beat on this one. We're going to keep sharing all that we already know and the ongoing messages that we're privileged to have with Neale every week. So Roshanak, Dr. Roshanak, I'm going to actually pose this one at you because I know that you've got this, being a neuroscientist, you have this amazing ability to take neuroscience and spirituality. You've combined them into this beautiful work that you do called Access to the Path. And in that work, I know that you could answer this question in your own unique way are there times that you were talking about blame and shame and some of the emotions and experiences we have in our life. Are these just a few of the ways that we block this ability to hear? Neale's coming back. There he goes. Here he comes.
Hey,
we'll give him 1 minute.
There he
There he
is.
is. Oh, and you're moving. Congratulations.
Wow, you're animated.
Yes, you stepped back into your form.
Your soul is moving that vessel of yours. Lovely.
I thought, isn't this perfect for this to happen right now when we're talking about communications with the divine?
Exactly, right? You blocked your Shakti.
And there is no coincidence, as you know. So there you go.
There isn't.
You're faking it. I can see you're faking it.
Here we go. We can see.
Boy,
that was a much better pose that
you
time.
You got to get up earlier in the morning than that to fool us.
So Neale, I was talking about blocking that flow, that conversation. You said that you tell us you have this conversation. So my two questions goes, first of all, when you had this conversation and you have this ongoing conversation that you continue to share with the world, is this like you literally hear like a voice that's talking to you? Is there like some speaker that we don't have that's built into you that, is it actual voice, like we all have this, what I call your monkey mind. How do you experience it?
As I said a little while ago, it could be a fragrance, it could be a vision, it could be a feeling, it could be a voice. I was just explaining that before we froze up here. So there's not just one way that the divine communicates with me and with all of us. But when it does turn out to be in the form of a voice, it's always what I would call I've described it as a voiceless voice, like the voice of one's own thoughts. I'm sure we've all heard ourselves, in a sense, talking to ourselves. We hear our mind telling us, no, turn left at the next corner, and for no apparent reason. So we just follow the instruction. And we realize that we needed to make that left turn. But if somebody says, what did that voice sound like? Was it an old man? Was it a young girl? Was it a female, male? What described the voice? You would say, well, I don't know. It's kind of like a voiceless voice, like the sound of one's own thoughts. So that's how I would describe it. When I do hear a voice in my mind, it's a voice without any particular characteristic, but still clear as a bell, telling me, what it wants me to know or what it wants me to hear. Like for instance, I might be having a discussion with a loved one, a member of my family, and I realize I'm getting into waters that are too deep, or an argument is about to begin, and I'll hear a voice saying to me, "Don't answer that. Don't get into that right now. Just change the subject, or get out of it, or don't answer that." Now, where did that voice come from? I think it came from the place of divinity within me, which allows me to choose who I want to be and how I want to be in any given moment of my life.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And
That's
And
sometimes it'll
my
make me freeze up in the middle of a.
Still
we
faking
get
it.
into it too.
We can
Exactly.
tell.
Fake it till you make it, right? I wonder how long he
But
can
it's
do
pretty
that without
good.
blinking. Oh no,
I'll
we
be
got the blink.
blinking.
Okay, now just before we move on, my other quick question that goes along with this then is, have you experienced times in your own life where you feel like you've cut that voice, that communication off? Has there been things that go on in your own life? We were talking about shame and blame and different experiences that we have in our own life where you feel like you can't connect to that voice or that guidance coming in anymore. Are there ways we could?
I don't have a moment where I feel like to use your exact words, can't connect.
Okay.
I'm repeating what I just heard you say.
Yeah.
So the answer is no. I have not had a feeling or moments in which I feel that I can't connect, but I have moments in which I feel that I don't choose to connect. I can, but I'm refusing to do so. It's like I hear a knock at the door and I'm not going to, or the doorbell ring, and I'm not going to answer the door. So there are times when I deliberately don't answer the door because my mind goes, you know what, I'm tired of hearing all that, I'm just going, I'm just going to be told not to feel this way, or I'm just going to be told I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't do that, whatever. And so there are times when I actually deny the wisdom that is flowing to me from 1,000 different sources in life, whether it's that fragrance that I encounter at the department store, or the chance utterance of a friend on the street, or in fact a voice in my mind. So there is no time when I can't, but there are some times when I simply choose not to.
And then we could choose differently. So we always have that free will and that choice, don't we?
Yes.
What about the people that don't actually recognize that they're not choosing not to intentionally or consciously? What would they do? How could they recognize the voice?
I think that's step number 4 is wakefulness. They simply, when they start getting the same message in different ways over and over again, and that was my experience in my life. When I started receiving the same information over and over again in different ways, then I realized, how many times do I need to encounter my awareness of this particular piece of information before I embrace it, accept it, and act on it? So I guess the only answer I could give you to that would be repetition. I talk in my books about a great gift of life is what I call reliable repetition. Life is reliable, and I promise you that it will repeat everything that it wants you to know until you finally get to a place where you know it.
So really, to the 300, 400, 500 people that we have listening today, we could literally say, there's a reason they're here today. They made a conscious choice.
Well, I don't
to
think there's
come
any.
and join to have this
there's any
message
question.
today.
I don't think there's any question about that. There are no. CWG told me there are no coincidences, and your soul invited you here. Now, whether you accept the invitation in full and embrace everything you're hearing is another matter. But did you come here by accident, by coincidence, by chance? No. Clearly, your soul invited you here, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thanks to everyone who has accepted it. Now we're coming to a close to the end of the show. Dr. Roshnak, before I give Neale our final, we have a final special question we ask all of our guests. But Dr. Roshnak, do you have anything else that you would like to ask Neale before we start our descent today?
Our ascent? I'm thrilled with this conversation. And, I think that, Neale, your genuineness, your honesty, your authenticity, is incredibly important for us to, all of us, to be able to come back into our own, an alignment with our own true selves, so that we can relax into being able to receive well. So I just wanted to thank you so much for that and all that you bring into the world. The chat has been a fire with people responding to you and appreciating you and talking about how they know you and the effect that you've had on them. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much.
That's very sweet of you. Thank you for saying those words to me. I received that with humility and with gratitude. I want to make one point clear to everybody who's watching right now. Look, guys, I'm very clear that none of this is my wisdom. This is not me being a really wise person. Be aware, all I did was take dictation. And I'm not being falsely humble. That's been my exact experience. I simply took dictation. And I paid attention to what I was receiving. And then I'll give myself this much. I did take the dare to share it with the world. But all I did was take dictation. It's not my wisdom at all. So listen carefully to the wisdom that's flowing to you and flowing to all of us. That would be my word of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, you ready for the big final question? And Neale, we've talked about this, but one day I think we have to do a clubhouse style conversation right here on Humanity's Team, where we can bring some live questions in. There's been lots in the chat today. Thank you, everyone. Whether you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you're here in the stream. Thank you for being with us today and all of your great questions. I will let you know that tomorrow we will be on Clubhouse Live with Neale, where you can ask him questions directly. You can find that on the events page of Humanity's Team, so you can go and check that out before we leave today. Now, Neale, before we go, this is our final question, and you're gonna have to tap in for this one. So our final question to you, we call it the get off the couch moment, because we want people to be able to leave here with some kind of action and understanding to get them off the couch and go truly experience, as you would say, the highest, truest version of who they are and how we can best serve the world living this way. But we'd like the answer to come not from you, but what would the answer be from God?
Oh,
No pressure.
I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
Jacqueline asks the easy questions.
What would God say to us to get us off the couch today?
All kidding aside, it's not my place to tell you what I think God would say. That's the last thing I need to do, is become a spokesperson for God. So we're not going there. Not even to pretend.
What guidance would you give everyone today to give them their get off the couch moment and go live their life to their fullest, as you have done?
Yes, channeling God.
Decide to stop being a seeker of anything. Never more be a seeker of wisdom, clarity, understanding, awareness, kindness, or love. Stop being a seeker and decide to be the source. And dare yourself to say, I am the source of all that I was seeking. And I will experience all that I was seeking by being the source of it in the life of another. And so what gets me off the couch? I jump off the couch to see if there's someone right here in my home, in my own house, who could be needing, yearning for, or could use what it is that I have been seeking in my life, or that I would like more of in my life. And if I haven't experienced it, there's something I'd like more of in my life, I turn and provide it to the first person I encounter. I decide that I am the source. A wonderful example, just a couple of days ago, I was feeling a bit lonely, just going through one of those moments that we all go through. I was feeling a little bit like by myself. And I thought, gosh, I really want to feel more companion. So I thought I could seek to be more companion. And then I remembered my own advice to myself. Neale, don't seek anything. Be the source of what you are seeking and source it in the life of another. So I went into the next room, and there was my beloved spouse in the kitchen, just doing kitchen stuff. And I walked up to her. And I thought, I'm going to be the source of more companionship and the presence of another person loving in her life. On the off chance that there's a part of her that is now seeking what I was seeking. So I put my arm around her, from behind. She was at the kitchen sink. I just wrapped my arm around her from behind. She turned around and she said, "Oh, what's all that about?" And I said, "I just want you to know that you are companioned and loved in this moment and always." And boy, did I ever experience what I was seeking by stop seeking it and being the source of it in the life of another. So when you go out onto the street, whether you're in a grocery store, when you're in that coffee shop we talked about earlier, or anywhere in life, look for others who are wishing they could experience what you were seeking before you got off the couch, and see yourself as the source. It's magical, folks. When you decide to be the source of what you are seeking, you become a sorcerer.
Perfect.
And there it is.
There it is. Drop the mic moment. No, drop the mic
There
moment.
it is.
Neale, my friend, thank you. Thank you actually will never be the words that we'll be able to express enough. The beautiful understanding that we all get. I've read all your books. I've experienced it. We get so much time together. And every time, and I want the audience to know this too, every time we're together, I just get another beautiful little moment that I go, oh yeah, the sorcerer. That's like, that will stick with me now. And I will remember that in my moments, that whether I'm struggling or I'm not sure what to do, that's going to come to me and through me. I think I do a lot of that in the work that I do, but to be the love, to be the light in someone else's life always is what gives us, right? It gives us what we actually need the most. So thank you for that. And thank you for being with us. This is only just the beginning of your time with us here on Mindset, Heartset, Reset, Rewarding. Because with the response that we've had here and the amount of people that we've come through, we know that you're needed, my friend, so much in this world, and just your wisdom, your beautiful smile, and your energetic frequency is so appreciated and valued.
He's a sorcerer, Jacqueline.
He is the sorcerer. We're going to get you a wand.
Sorcerer Supreme.
For the next show, we're going to get you your own magic wand. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm just going to do, before we leave today, I want to give you a quick moment. So next week on Mindset, Heartset, Reset, we're going to be speaking to yet another world-renowned author, the author of Calling in One and Conscious Uncoupling. She will remind us, and this is Catherine Woodward Thomas. She will remind us in the episode that we have coming up next Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. PST and noon EST time. That love belongs to us all. And I love that phrase of hers. We're going to take an uncommon approach to talk about love, something a little bit different. We're going to examine love as a life tool that taps the energetic wellspring of that divine energy we were talking about today, the God energy that drives all creation. This is where we can create relationships in our own lives that are going to create fulfillment. They're going to create an abundance of wealth, and that wealth being love. And it's going to be something beyond all of our wildest imagination. So we're looking forward to having you coming with us next week and coming along on this journey. I think Dr. Roshanak and I feel as though we're on a journey of our own learning through everyone that we get to talk to. And Neale, my friend, thank you. We love you so much. And you know that. And we'll look forward to our time together. Come and join us on Clubhouse tomorrow. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody there.
Yes,
and Neale, we will see you soon.
We had questions in the chat. So if you haven't had your questions answered, join us on Clubhouse. Go to Humanity's Team and go to their live events or their events calendar. And you will see there will be a link where you can come and talk to Neale live tomorrow. He is on at 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Pacific,
Yep.
4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. GMT. And you can ask him all the questions that you want because he's got all the time in the world when he's on Clubhouse with us, right?
He does. Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing everyone soon. And Neale, congratulations on your new book, God Talk. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on his website. Go order it today. We all need to be reading this book. This is going to change
Absolutely.
the way that we view and we show up in life and make that conversation come clear to us every day. Thank you, Neale. Have a beautiful day, my friends.
Thank you
God
guys
bless.
very much.
Namaste.
Bye for now.